Now that I have finally finished all the time-consuming CPU and GPU testing for now, I'm proudly presenting you my fairly late review of an NVIDIA graphics card we've possibly been waiting for years. With that said, please welcome the GIGABYTE RTX 3060 Ti, the gaming OC 8G version featuring 3 fans. Could this be the wonderful WQHD 1440p gaming GPU we've been waiting for so long? Also, to top things off, this may or may not be a great entry into 4K gaming, well, at least with the right graphics settings, that is. Very well, at the end of the day, a graphics card only is as good as the price shapes it to be for us consumers, and the price is looking pretty horrible right now. Excuse my harsh, very true wording here. When comparing prices at the time of this video, you're easily spending $420 US and all the way up to $500 or more for such an RTX 3060 Ti. These are not realistic prices. In fact, the pricing is all over the place right now, and most cards at the time of making this video seem to be out of stock too. According to NVIDIA, the official MSRP should be $399. In Europe, things are looking even worse in terms of prices. So it's currently hard to name the final pricing due to all that's going on in the industry right now. Stock issues, crypto mining boom, and so on and so forth. So let's assume the best and that things will improve over time. In the meantime, let's refer to the MSRP as the somewhat realistic pricing. Let's go. As we are pretty much used to with GIGABYTE, besides a little bit of documentation and the actual graphics card, there are no additional accessories. A well-deserved thank you goes out to Georgios over at the PC hardware shop Equipper. That Spartan managed to get a hold of that card for me in early December, so it's all on me. I'm the one to blame for being so late with this review. Thank you very much, Georgios. Hashtag not sponsored. For this gaming OC version comes into play the by now well-known so-called WindForce 3X cooler by GIGABYTE. Aesthetically speaking, there are only a few differences compared to the comparable RTX 3070 model, which I happen to have reviewed sometime end of 2020. Although the whole shroud is out of plastic, I still like the looks of it, but I sure would welcome an even simpler, more minimalistic approach to it. But that of course comes down to preference. Other than that, the build quality makes a decent impression. Noteworthy also is that pretty aluminum backplate, at the end of the card even coming with a cathode hole to allow air to go directly through the heatsink with a fan located at the other side. GIGABYTE as always loves marketing their triple 80mm fan approach, which from the likes of it have further been improved over previous versions. They now should apparently operate more effectively and quieter, which I luckily can confirm. The center fan spins in the opposite direction to help reduce turbulence, something we've seen with plenty of cards by now. Also, right out of the box on default, the cooler operates semi-passively, meaning the fans only spin up at a certain GPU load, or rather once higher temperatures are reached. Once the temperatures drop again, the fans automatically stop spinning after a while. While I can greatly praise the quiet cooling on here, I still feel the need to point out to you guys that I witnessed a little bit of rattling at certain fan speeds on the third and last fan out of the 3. It however is only my particular model that is suffering from this, and I have no reason to assume it's a widespread issue. But then again, it can barely be considered an issue in the first place. I'm just pointing out that silence freaks most likely would find this to be a strict no-go. For me personally, not too bothersome. You've surely by now noticed how short these RTX 3000 PCBs all are when it comes to dimensions. Many versions simply artificially extend the length to allow for more cooling surface, better cooling. To provide power, there's a single 8-pin PCIe power connector on board, so the card shouldn't be all too power hungry. Those that are familiar with the RTX 3070 version by GIGABYTE will have noticed that there's no longer a dual BIOS switch on here. In this price range, it makes sense to leave that one out. Official support for NVLink multi-GPU setups is non-existent here. NVIDIA is stepping away further and further from such setups. Okay, now that were the obvious things, let's now get to the specs. The RTX 3060 Ti, just like the 3070, makes use of the very same GA104 GPU. The only difference, everything has been slimmed down. We still find the same 8GB of GDDR6 VRAM on here, with the same 14GB per second speed, and the identical amount of video outputs, of course. The GPU clock is reduced though, and what has an even greater effect on performance, Nvidia did cut down on the shader units. There also happen to be fewer RT and Tensor cores on the 3060 Ti than there are on the 3070. If we were to compare a maybe somewhat comparable graphics card in terms of pricing by Team Green, at least at some point prices appear to be similar, we probably would be looking at an RTX 2060 Super. A 3060 Ti appears like a performance beast directly out of hell compared to the 2060 Super though, and the performance numbers pretty much confirm that. So performance-wise, we should actually be comparing against a higher tier GPU. I've not only put together myself a new test system for my CPU testing, but for graphics cards as well. It consists of an AMD Ryzen 9 5950X 16-core on my favorite X570 motherboard named ASRock X570PG Velocita or Velocita. Now I've gone through a mighty long testing marathon. In a game Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the GPU on average clocks at about 1932 MHz, but sometimes drops down to 1920 MHz. So that's looking pretty good, but obviously there's not much meaning behind that. Which is why we'll now take a closer look at the test results I managed with my new testing platform. Enjoy! Without the slightest doubt, in the case of today's RTX 3060 Ti, we are dealing with some kind of performance miracle, at least when taking realistic pricing into consideration. With current pricing in early 2021, these performance numbers I achieved aren't too impressive. But I can only keep repeating myself, the current PC hardware market is, well, utter chaos. What's obvious right after inspecting those charts closer is that the 3060 Ti no longer can be compared with an RTX 2060 Super Turing graphics card. In fact, overall, the actual counterpart of the previous gen appears to be the 2080 Super. Not too long ago, the 2080 Super was the second best card of the lineup, when not counting the Titan. The only difference, the 3060 Ti coming in at a significantly lower price, at least when going by the MSRP. On average, the inconspicuous 3060 Ti takes the lead over the 2080 Super, making it, without any doubt, an amazing WQHD 1440p king in my book. In most of the games I achieved over 100 FPS at maxed out settings. Well, or at least didn't miss that mark by much, that's more like it. What impresses me even more as a user of a 4K monitor is that with the 3060 Ti we are being offered a pretty good entry into 4K gaming. Sure, don't expect amazingly high frame rates like you get to see at 1440p, but with the right adjustments to the settings, you can enjoy both good frame rates as well as good graphics fidelity, in my opinion. Needless to say, a 3060 Ti does support ray tracing and DLSS. While ray tracing already is in its second iteration, the ray tracing performance with a 3060 Ti doesn't impress me enough to call it seriously good. I mean, compared to the RTX 2000 series, it's still close to being a miracle, but not a whole lot of game titles do support that feature yet. And at the end of the day, ray tracing just eats away your FPS instead of offering seriously improved graphics to make up for it. I'm sorry, this simply is my opinion. Feel free to disagree. It seems from a performance point of view, we aren't ready for it yet. But then again, everything has to start somewhere. DLSS 2.0, on the other hand, impressed me big time. Nvidia certainly deserves great praise for that incredible feature. Especially in a new title called Cyberpunk 2077, it is proven what DLSS is capable of. At first we were playing with around 52 FPS. Once we enable DLSS though, we are suddenly dealing with 76 FPS. That's a frame rate increase of a whopping 46% without any drastic visual losses. DLSS, if you're asking me, is a far bigger milestone than ray tracing is, and AMD better offer us a great alternative with their GPUs. Nvidia's RTX 3000 series, compared to their own 2000 series lineup, furthermore managed to greatly impress in the productivity side of things. In such aspects, it's not unusual for the 3060 Ti to beat the 2080 Ti, which not too long ago was still considered an absolute beast for those kind of workloads. Great praise also is very much deserved for a good power consumption. The power efficiency on the 3060 Ti indeed seems to be pretty impressive. The temperatures Gigabyte's Windforce 3X cooler seems to have completely under control, especially when considering the low noise levels of this card, at least compared to what we were used to from previous generation GPUs of the last couple of years. So the conclusion is, long story short, a 3060 Ti is more or less offering 2080 Super performance, most of the time even a few % more, but does cost a lot less money. Basically, I would be talking of an excellent price to performance ratio, but due to what the current market situation is looking like, I simply cannot make such a fixed statement. However, if the MSRP can be trusted, then this could very well be the graphics card we've been dreaming and waiting for so many years. At decent prices, I can definitely recommend the GIGABYTE RTX 3060 Ti Gaming OC 8G. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to have you back next time around too.